there are countless organizations. I have clients who, with the changes happening in Washington, it's impacting themselves, their members, and it's difficult to know where to go with it. But one thing's clear to them, to everyone, is that action's needed. So with the changing media landscape, with digital, with all the different avenues that you can go in, I think it's, depending on who you are, I think it's super important to really establish the big question of, what do we want to say, what do we want to accomplish, and then putting together a strategic, smart plan to get your message out there, to utilize allies, to utilize stakeholders. There's so many, you look at so many different types of industries are impacted by some of the things happening in Washington. Can we partner with a different type of organization to be creative and strategic in how you're amplifying your message, and why it's important to your business and to the entire state and country.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that there's no one size fits all. That we know all the tools, we know how they work, but when we work with clients, we're going to recommend the things that are going to be most effective for them to achieve the objective that they want to have. And we don't just here's your handout and start checking your boxes, because it's really important to be strategic about this. And sometimes that's Hill visits, sometimes it's letters, sometimes it's calls, sometimes it's partnering with others. Sometimes it's a message that you get out through the news media or through social media. Sometimes it's calling upon your own constituencies. For example, the work that I was involved in recently for my international assignments, and we motivated a group of over 700 people who had volunteered their services to this program and did it completely grassroots to sign a petition. And petitions are not always a good tool, especially if they're for the masses, but we found it was very effective because we limited it to bona fide volunteers. And then we recruited volunteers from every congressional district and state to be the one that sent the petition to the member of their Congress saying, see, this is grassroots people who did this. And by the way, you had X from your state and X from your district who signed on. And it was effective.
I think dovetailing on what both Ben and Lani have said is, knowing your audience, understanding what you want to say and when to say it. I know, the clients that I work with, they certainly have issues and things that they want to share, but understanding government and understanding the process of government is really important. And I think that's where, we as experts coming from those areas and those industries and now in the position to help other clients really step in. And as an example, if we have a client who is concerned about a transportation issue, helping them identify the people that they need to talk to, because I think a lot of times people think that they can just talk to whoever they want in Congress and it's going to have impact, when they don't understand that these members, whether they're in the Senate and the House, they're on committees and the legislation starts in those committees. And so particularly it's important, say, if we're talking about transportation, that you're talking to members who are on the transportation committee, not the ag committee. Right. And so just knowing those little nuances are things that, we have helped, constituents deal with when, we were in the position of working for elected officials. And now that we're in a position to help clients do that, just making sure that they understand who they're talking to, what they need to say, who they need to say, and when they need to say it in the process. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the fact of the matter is that things have changed to the point where the old way of looking at things, doing things in a certain way, probably isn't cut out for this day and age. And I think it's incredibly important for organizations and for, no matter who you are, is to truly understand your values, understand your placement within the world, and how far do you want to take something. And I also, as you're kind of answering that, big question, internal communication within your organization is critically important. Do we want to be out there and kind of have an aggressive message? Do we want to just kind of, internally share that, live our values, or do we want to have more of a passive approach in the way that we're addressing these issues as they come up? And I think when one day this thing's happening, one day this thing's happening, if you have those core values and you have buy-in from your team, you're able to kind of navigate those waters and not go here to here to here, and instead to have more of a straight line towards the larger goal. And Lonnie's exactly right. I mean, it's not one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter. Hey, here's how we're going to amplify our message. Every situation's unique. There's unique stakeholders, unique allies, unique issues, and that's why it's incredibly important to have an experienced team helping you out, navigate these waters, amplify the message, and that's somewhere where Tunheim can be particularly helpful.
And it's also, we talked a little bit earlier about the messaging itself. Even if you know what you want, it's important to do some real work on clarifying those messages and articulating them, and making sure that you can say them in a very clear way, and also know, as we talked about earlier, that different offices have different interests and different hot buttons, that you can navigate them but stay true to your core messaging, and that everybody should be able to say them very naturally when they go into those offices. And just one real technical piece of advice, when I worked with farmers and a farmer board of director in my past life, because they're elected to the board of this very large company, these are smart people and they know their stuff. But if they have not visited a congressional office before, it can be a little bit intimidating. So we actually used to do some role play and training where we would ask the questions and be the staffer or be the member of Congress, and make sure that they were really comfortable going into that setting. And I think that can be, just like you don't want to put somebody out there cold for a media interview, you don't want to do that to somebody, send them into a congressional office without a real comfort level in the assignment that they are taking on. And that doesn't mean you want to be uber polished and frozen and, robotic. We'll send AI if that's what we want. But to just make sure that you can deliver that message, tell that story in an effective and meaningful way.
That's a great idea.